Welcome back to the Bearded Console Gamer, and today I'll be filling you in on everything that we learned about Cyberpunk 2077 from yesterday's Night City Wire presentation. In episode 2, which was emceed by the infectiously enthusiastic Holly Bennett, we were given new gameplay footage and taken on a deep dive that revealed details on how the Lifepaths system will affect your experience of Cyberpunk 2077. We also got a ton of new info on the different types of weaponry that will be available to V as they probably justifiably murder their way through the grimy neon world of Night City. As always, please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, as it's a new channel and it really helps out. First, a little context just in case you aren't fully up to date on Cyberpunk news. A life path is the name given to each of the three protagonist backstories that players pick from at the beginning of the game. Depending on which you choose, your player will have different stats and options, and it will even dictate where you start your adventure. There are three defining life paths on offer. You can choose to be a nomad, a street kid, or a corpo. In episode 2 of the Night City Wire, we were given a brief, semi-cliched presentation for each choice that served to explain the upbringing and motivations that your V could have as he begins his adventure, depending on which of these life paths you select at the outset. The street kid life path is the quintessential troubled gang story of a young kid who grew up running from the police and doing what was needed to survive in a downtrodden world of crime, which in this case is a street called Haywood. This upbringing shaped this version of V, who is offered an opportunity to avoid the life of grind and become a legend overnight, an opportunity that he assumably grabs with gusto. The nomad version of V was raised in the Badlands, and spent his or her childhood racing cars with a ragtag so-called family who, at the outset of the story, had been torn apart by some unknown event that prompts V to find his way into Night City. This Fast and the Furious / Mad Max version of the protagonist will definitely form the basis of my murderous thermal katana-wielding monster of a character. Finally, your V could be a corpo, a worker for one of the corporations that effectively pull the strings and sit atop the mouldering pile of neon lights, inequality, and stylish savagery that is the Cyberpunk universe. Where your adventure starts is dependent on which lifestyle you choose, each of which comes with its own sets of strengths and weaknesses that'll shape how your V is able to overcome the challenges that lurk in Night City. For example, a street kid will have a greater knowledge of the city's seedy underbelly, and this would be reflected in V's dialogue options when dealing with certain NPCs. Conversely, the street kid would have no idea how to deal with a high-value client or corporate intrigue, areas that a corpo would excel in. In a developer Q&A between Holly Bennett and senior quest designer Philip Weber, we were given a side quest example of how your life paths could affect how a mission turns out. In this scenario, the Maelstrom gang has stolen a flathead robot from a corpo called Meredith Stout, who wants her back. Here, a corporate life path V would have extra info on Stout and how to play the situation, while the Nomad would have insight into how the gang itself worked. The street kid would have no extra dialogue options when dealing with Stout because they weren't raised in that way, but they would have a better chance at ingratiating themselves with the Maelstrom gang further down the line. The developers note that whilst your backstory choice will have a serious impact on the game at the outset, that Cyberpunk 2077 is a fully fleshed out RPG, and that you'll be presented with these life path decisions throughout the game that'll continue to shape your V. As was the case in The Witcher, these decisions will come in the shape of dialogue options. It was also reiterated that regardless of your chosen life path, your V will have the option of jumping in the car and riding out to explore the global warming and war-ravaged Badlands, should the mood take you. We were also introduced to characters called Fixers, who act as intermediaries between clients and mercenaries. I'm guessing these NPCs will be pivotal in feeding side quests to characters throughout the game. To date we know of two such characters, Padre, who operates in Haywood, and Dexter Deshawn, who works in a different section of the city. These powerful individuals are deeply territorial, and which you meet first will depend on the life path that you chose for your V. That being said, you're sure to run into all of them as your adventure progresses. We were also given a behind-the-scenes look at how Keanu Reeves's, or Johnny Silverhand's band Samurai, and their music were brought to life in the game. This section gets into the artists behind the music that'll feature in the title, and how they had to adapt their style to fit the video game setting. If you're into video game development, or just music in general, I recommend that you watch that section in its entirety. But moving back to the gameplay, the Night City Wire revealed that there will be a huge amount of weapon variety available to V as he tears his way through the cyberpunk world, ranging from powerful shotguns and sniper rifles to cyberware embedded in the protagonist's body. There are three main ranged weapon types available to V. Heavy-hitting power weapons, such as the Carnage pump-action shotgun, have the ability to ricochet bullets off surfaces to strike enemies hiding in cover. They also have the ability to literally tear enemies in half if they aren't smart enough to find said cover. There are also tech weapons that accelerate inquisitive bullets into enemies with the help of electromagnetic power. These tasty boys can punch through walls and other obstacles to find the tender meat behind. Meanwhile, there are also sleek-looking smart weapons that shoot homing projectiles for the more tactically minded killers out there. One particular smart shotgun, the Kang Tao Zhao, forgive the pronunciation, is capable of tracking and gently injuring 8 enemies at once. You can basically clear a room with a single press of the trigger. These weapons can be modified with attachments that alter the stats and appearance of your guns, or software mods, which are chips that alter weapon properties or allow weapons to fire chemical rounds that chew through armor or non-lethal rounds, for example. We also got a look at some of the melee weapons, including the thermal katana, my absolute go-to when this game launches. But the mantis blades and the freaking arm cannon looks pretty appealing too. Powell Kapala, senior gameplay designer for 2077, elaborated on the weapon offering. He told us that as V moves through the story and his legend grows, that they'll become more proficient at using the weaponry on offer, which will lead to shorter reload times, greater accuracy, quicker aiming, and basically all the perks that you'd expect. Kapla also revealed that the many weapons in the game won't just be acquired from NPC vendors. The best weapons have to be prized from the cold dead hands of powerful enemies and loot boxes hidden throughout Night City. Furthermore, they'll come in a range of rarities, from common to uncommon, rare, and finally, legendary. Legendary weapons will be the toughest to get, and will boast rare abilities that no other death dealers in the game possess. Some of them can only be obtained if you choose to kill a certain NPC rather than sparing them. Finally, if you're anything like me, you like to pick up the paper-bound sidekicks for your favourite digital worlds. If that's the case, you may want to pick up the world of Cyberpunk 2077, which, created in conjunction with Dark Horse Books, will let inquisitive minds delve into the world of Cyberpunk ahead of the game's release in November. That said, I won't actually read this book until I finish my first playthrough. I hate the idea of spoiling the goods ahead of time. And that's it for the second episode of Night City Wire. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you thought of the presentation in the comments. We've been promised more Cyberpunk 2077 updates in the near future, so stay tuned for more gaming news, reviews, and reactions.